This is introduction and basics for goalkeeping for kids going into 9U and 10U in recreational soccer. Also can apply to kids going into travel soccer for the first time, and there will be a number of things in this video that will also be helpful to kids in recreational soccer up through 14U. Before we get into the video of activities and points we can make on the field, I wanted to go through some introductory talking points about goalkeeping. My name is Steve Fisher. I'm the Director of Coaching for AYSO in Trumbull. Been doing coaching here for almost 25 years, always had an interest in teaching kids goalkeeping as well as just general coaching. One of the reasons is that it's very important that kids get some degree of training, particularly at 9U and 10U, before you put them out in the goal. There's some coaches who will take kids and just rotate them in and out of the goal, figuring everybody on the team should play in the position. I certainly understand that point of view, but there's just frankly a lot of kids who don't want to go into the goal. They're afraid to do it, and if there's some negative outcomes in terms of a lot of balls that get by them, they may not want to play soccer again. So I think it's important to ask and select kids who have an interest in trying it. Hopefully on any given team of 10 or 12 kids, there's a couple who'd like to do it. And if a couple do it and they have a little bit of training and some success, there might be a couple more that like to do that. We have to keep in mind that when kids begin goalkeeping at 9U and 10U, they're basically 8 and 9 years old. You're talking third and fourth graders. And when they have gone through 8U, in the vast majority of U.S. youth soccer, and certainly here in Trumbull, nobody plays goal. It's 5-on-5, and we just have small nets and the goals are open. So they all of a sudden get onto a field that's about 3 times as large at 10U. They have goals that are pretty large relative to the size of the player. And without some degree of training, it can be a pretty scary thing. So the one thing we wanted to do was to provide a resource to coaches where they could provide perhaps a couple of hours of training during the season to the kids that do this. It's difficult to do that. Sometimes during practices, you may have to have the kids who are interested in goalkeeping come a little earlier, stay a little later, and work with them as a small group. But it really is important to try to give them a little bit of training so that they have some idea of what they're doing before they actually get into goal in a game. Goalkeeping, frankly, in soccer is one of the most important positions, and if you talk to a lot of soccer experts, some of them will even say it's the most important position. Soccer always, of course, starts out as 0-0. Getting a lot of goals on offense is sometimes a challenge, so every time you give up one on defense, it obviously is a disadvantage to you as a team. And again, we're not always interested, of course, in keeping score. But if the other team gets a lot of easy ones, because the player that's put in goal really doesn't know very much about how to do the position, it's really not only discouraging for the player, it can be discouraging for the other teammates. And frankly, I always consider these easy ones that just get by a kid's feet who's had no training to not be really good goals for the other team, because a kid with just a little bit of training in goalkeeper probably would stop them. So you have the parents cheering for the player that scores an easy goal, and we certainly understand that. But it also disadvantages the players on the attack, because they really need to be taught to shoot more to one side of the goal or another, or shoot a little higher. So if they're able to score with just some easy little dribbly kicks past an inexperienced goalkeeper, that really doesn't help for that development as well. Okay. Some of the traits that are required for goalkeeping is not being too afraid or too shy to try out the position, a willingness to learn new skills, because goalkeeping is a very different set of skills than playing on the field, that they want to actually more actively play in the space and not just stand on the goal line waiting for shots and hoping they just come right to your feet in the center and it's very easy. and kids who can also psychologically be able to shake off a goal that's scored on them and not dwell on it too long, get past it, and hope that they get the next shot. Also, you'll have an opportunity shortly to hear some comments from an actual young player who's about 10 that plays in goal for a local travel team organization who's had about a year and a half of experience. It doesn't make her an expert, but it makes her far more knowledgeable about the position than a lot of players, so you get to hear some of her perspectives as well. And in this video, you'll see her demonstrating a variety of skills. And the reason we wanted to use an actual player rather than a professional like you might see in some educational videos is that it gives you an expectation of what actual kids can develop into as a goalkeeper, but they're still kids, and they still obviously have a lot to learn, and they won't execute the skills by any means perfectly. So one of the things in finding some extra time to spend with the kids, and we know it's difficult for volunteer coaches, the kids will certainly appreciate it. The kids know that they are on stage when they're playing in a goalkeeper position. That when you're playing in the middle of the field and you kind of fall down and trip on the ball, yeah, people notice it, but they forget about it probably 30 seconds later. The kids don't feel too self-conscious about it. Or if you miss a pass in the middle of the field, or even if you miss a shot, everybody kind of goes, good try, they applaud, and you might get that shot the next time. When all of a sudden there's an attack on the goal and it looks like there's a high probability of a goal being scored, all eyes go to the player that's in the goal, and they can feel very self-conscious about that. And that's the point at which the coaches desperately hope the goalkeeper will somehow save the shot and not give up the point. And the kid is at that point is definitely on stage, and sometimes it can feel in a very negative way. So it is important to prepare them at least for some of the basics. One of the things also to point out that we have to tell the young goalkeepers that it's not their fault when they get scored on.
It's not your fault. It's not your fault.
And there's a large tendency for a lot of young kids who play in goal to feel that way because they were the last line of defense between the shooter and the ball finding the back of the net. And the only one that I would say is ever really a goalkeeper's fault, if they have some training, is just a slow little dribbly shot that kind of goes right through their legs when it is pretty easy to train them just to get down and scoop up the ball in those situations. Otherwise, when you have any kind of a decent shot, somebody or more than one person on the defense had to let the attacker through to make the shot in the first place. So although we don't like to talk about things being kids' fault when they play in goal or when they play in soccer on offense or defense, if you want to really kind of identify what may be responsible for a goal being scored, ultimately it becomes some kind of an error on the part of the defense and a training opportunity to get defenders to do their role a little bit better. So really the goalkeeper can be thought of as being there to kind of clean up the mistakes that the defense makes. They won't always be successful doing it, but sometimes they will be successful doing it. And in that process, it provides a little different outlook for what the role of the goalkeeper is. So one of the questions too coaches will ask is, how much time should a recreational player or even a young travel player spend actually playing in goal? And I would always say no more than one half of the game. Because it is important that they play on the field. It is important that they develop their field skills. Goalkeepers do need to have good footwork and good ball handling capabilities as much as field players. The other thing that's important to note, that if somebody is willing to go into the goal and play that position, and again, it takes a little bit more courage than some of the other players who don't want to do it, then if at all possible, based upon the playing time that's available in the game, the goalkeeper, when I coached, always got preference to choose what he or she wanted to play, and then to maximize their playing time as much as possible in the half where they played on the field. So if the goalkeeper said, I really want to play striker, after I do my half in goal, they should play striker. Give them as a reward the opportunity to play their preferred position. So, as we start talking about and getting into our exercises and activities on the field to show what goalkeepers need to be able to do, where we really start is on the basics, which is body stance, movement, and footwork. A lot of coaches might just start chucking the balls at the kids and say, here's how you try to catch a ball, or just shooting balls at the kids and trying to coach them how to catch the ball better. But if they can't move properly and if they don't have a proper body stance and awareness of the hand position, then it is very, very difficult for them to successfully catch the ball and to move to the ball when they need to. So the foundation of doing this really is the body stance and positioning, much like the foundation of field soccer is really the foot skills. Independent of actually how you play tactically on the field. For field soccer, you need to develop the foot skills first and foremost. And for a goalkeeper, first and foremost, you also need to develop their foot skills. In this case, it's really foot skills without the ball, how they stand and how they're going to move their bodies about in the goalkeeper space.